ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणम्। So till now we were discussing the Bhagavad Gita first module and the second module. In the first module we discussed about Karma Yoga in quite a detail, and in the second module we had discussion about Bhakti Yoga. And today the third module we are beginning, and this third module discusses actually it discusses about Jnana Yoga. So little bit of Sankhya also comes here, analysis of material world. So the whole section, last 6 chapters, is called as Jnana Yoga. So today's chapter is entitled, as you might have already seen the poster, chapter 13, the nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So in this chapter, we will find out what is Kshetra, who is Kshetrajna, what is the process of knowledge, who is the object of knowledge, what is the role of Paramatma in our life. So there's many questions will be answered here. So I have put this photo of Paramatma here. So who is Paramatma and what role he has in our life? So that we will see today. So the chapter 13, the breakdown is like this. It begins with a question by Arjuna, and that question has 6 parts. He asks the definition of 6 points, and those 6 questions are answered. So in the first shloka, he asks the question, and throughout the chapter, till the end, these 6 questions are only answered. So from text 2 to 7, Krishna answers third, fourth, and fifth question of Arjuna. Then second section, shloka number 8 to 12, Krishna explains the process of knowledge and liberation. So Krishna addresses the fifth question here. He elaborates the fifth question here, which is called Jnanam. The process of knowledge is explained in detail. And the third section, from shloka number 13 to 19, Krishna explains the object of knowledge. So the sixth question, Jnayam, Jnanam, Gnayam. So the 6 questions are Purusha, Prakriti. What is Purusha? What is Prakriti? What is Kshetra? What is Kshetrajna? What is Jnana? And what is Gnaya? So these 6 questions were asked. So Krishna answers the 6th question here. We'll discuss more in detail as we go through the chapter. And shloka number 20 to 26 explains about Krishna explains Prakriti, Purusha, and their union. What is Prakriti and Purusha, and how the combination which produces the varieties in this world. So that is explained. So last section tells about Jnana Chakshusha, the vision of knowledge. A person who is having this knowledge, how he sees the world. So that is discussed in the last part. Those who see the distinction between the body, its owner, and the super soul, and who recognize the process of liberation, can attain the supreme goal. So this is how the chapter ends. So the acronym is WISE, WISE. WISE questions, the 6 questions asked by Arjuna. The next item is items of knowledge. The 20 items of knowledge are described in 5 verses. And soul and super soul and enjoyer. So the Lord is the only real enjoyer. So this WISE is the acronym for this chapter. Okay. So we'll end here and then I'll open the Bhagavad Gita chapter 13. So we will start reciting the verses and discussing their meanings. So I want one of you to read today. Like generally, I was telling one of you to read. Last time, I think I don't remember who has read, but today, who would like to volunteer to read? Somebody who can recite behind me, and then okay, Shivani Mataji is agreeing. Yeah. So I'll recite this verse so you can follow behind me, and you can also read whenever I request you to read. Okay. So kindly, everybody, you can recite this. Arjuno Vacha
अर्जुन उवाच
Prakritim Purusham Chaiva
प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव
Kshetram Kshetrajnyameva cha
क्षेत्रं क्षेत्रज्ञमेव च
Etadvedutumichhami
एतद्वेदितुमिच्छामि
Jnanam Gneyam cha Keshava.
ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं च केशव.
So this is the shloka where Arjuna is asking question. So can you read this much?
Yes, sure. Arjuna said, "O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusa, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge."
Okay, so these 6 things Arjuna wanted to know. So he is asking the question here. So Prakriti is nature, material nature is called Prakriti. Purusha is the enjoyer of the Prakriti. And the field, so the material body is a field, which we will come to know in the next shloka. And knower of the field is the Atma, the knowledge, Jnana, and Gneya, the object of knowledge. Right? The knowledge leads to some object of knowledge. So that is Krishna. So these 6 questions Arjuna wants to know in detail. So when Krishna hears this question, Krishna starts answering straight away. Shri Bhagavanuvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Idam Shariram Kaunteya
इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय
Kshetram iti abhidiyate
क्षेत्रम् इति अभिधीयते
Etadyo vetti tam prahu
एतत् यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः
Kshetrajna iti tadvidaha.
क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदा.
Yes, you can read this part.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called a field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field."
Hmm. So there is body and the knower of the body. See, idam shariram kaunteya. Hey Arjuna, this sharira, kshetram iti abhidiyate. This body is called as kshetra, which is made up of all the material elements. It's a field. Kshetra means also field, the place where you work. So this body is the field for the soul. Etadyo vetti tam prahu kshetragna iti tadvidaha. One who knows this field is kshetragna. So two definitions are given here. Kshetram and kshetragna. Right? It's very easy, it's simple to understand. Like I have this body and I know whether I'm feeling hungry or not. If I feel hungry, I'll go and eat. So I'm knowing what all things are happening in this body. So this is a kshetra, and one who knows this body is called as kshetragna. Kshetragna means one who knows. Gnya means to know. Kshetragna means one who knows the body. So that is the definition. So Krishna here he is explaining. So I'll open the purport in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So, and I also request that those who have this Bhagavad Gita, you can keep the Bhagavad Gita so that when we are reading, we can refer to it and we can also underline certain portions of the book. Hmm. Yeah. So Prabhupada says here, the conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. So according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. Hmm. Like based on his desire, he gets a particular field. Sometimes it may be a human body field. Sometimes it can be an animal body field or a tree body field. That field of activity is the body. And what is the body? The body is made of senses, indriyas. Now we have got karmendriyas, we have got gyanendriyas. There are five karmendriyas, which we already discussed in one of the sessions. Karmendriyas means working senses, like the speech, the sight, the nose, the ears, hands and legs. So they are all working, right? So they are the working senses. So hands, legs, mouth, and mm, yeah, genitals and the anus. These are the five working senses. And knowledge acquiring senses are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. So these are the knowledge acquiring senses. The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to the capacity to enjoy sense gratification, is offered a body or a field of activity. Therefore, the body is called kshetra, or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Like generally, those who are farmers, they go to kshetra, or in Hindi they call khet. And the word khet come from kshetra only. So they go to the field and produce and work there and produce certain results like grains in that field. Similarly, the soul works in this body through the senses and produces some karmic reactions by its good activities or bad activities. So that's why this body is called as kshetra. Now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called kshetrajna, the knower of the field. Okay. So it's a very interesting definition. The person who should not identify himself with the body is called kshetrajna. Means one who knows that I am not this body, but I am aloof from this body. I am a person separate from this body. He is called a kshetrajna. Because a conditioned soul cannot understand, like many of the people in this world who are not attending Bhagavad Gita classes, they think I am this body. I am this body made of flesh and bones. That's what they think. So they are not kshetrajnas. But a person who is liberated, one who knows that I am different from this body and I am the owner of this body, he is called kshetrajna. Okay, so that definition should be very clear. One who knows the distinction between the body and the soul, he is kshetrajna. So it's not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the body, right? It's not very easy because we have already seen in the second chapter how Krishna very clearly explains the difference between body and the soul. So we'll not go into that. Like body is like the car and the soul is like the driver. So that analogy Prabhupada explains further here. And the body keeps changing, but the soul never changes. So the soul keeps transmigrating through the body, child body, youth body, and then old body. Then it dies finally. Body dies, but the soul transmigrates to the next body. So in this way, we can understand the difference between kshetra and kshetrajna. So now two answers were given. Out of six questions, 2 points are answered. One is kshetra and what is kshetrajna. Now the point of kshetrajna, Krishna will further explain now. He says that there is another kshetrajna who is a much better and superior kshetrajna, who is called as Paramatma. So let's recite the third verse. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि
सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत.
सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत
क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानम्
क्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानं
यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम.
यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम.
Can you please read this translation?
Yes. Ocean of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion.
Yes, I'll explain this through this PowerPoint here. See, Arjuna inquired in 13.1 about matter, spirit, and knowledge. So he asked about Prakriti and Kshetra, both are connected to nature. Then about spirit, he asked, who is Purusha and who is enjoyer? Enjoyer and Kshetrajna. Purusha is enjoyer, Kshetrajna is the knower of the body, is the spirit soul. And knowledge, Jnana and Gya. So these 6 questions were asked. So Kshetra and Kshetrajna described in from 13.2 to 7. So Kshetra is field of activities and it's made of senses. Like you see this photograph here. So this man who is made of different senses. There's a tongue and there is ears, there's eyes, there is nose. All the senses are there, working senses and cross senses, and through that he is trying to enjoy this world. So this body is called as Kshetra, right? And the body is made of Pancha Mahabhutas. You'll see a gross body made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and there is a subtle body made of Mana, Buddhi, and Ahankara. So this is subtle body made of Mana, Buddhi, and Ahankara. And beyond that, there is a soul. And this soul is Kshetrajna. Okay. So the one who knows that I'm separate from this body, he is called as Kshetrajna. So this we already read today. So in this shloka, which we read, third shloka, Krishna is also Kshetrajna. Kshetrajnam cha apimam. I am also Kshetrajna. So the soul is Kshetrajna because I know what is happening in this body. But there is another Kshetrajna who also knows what is happening in my body, not only my body, but also all bodies. Sarva Kshetreshu. You see the word Sarva Kshetreshu means all bodies. Your body, my body, animal's body, tree's body, whatever is happening in their body, Krishna knows. That's why he is called as Kshetrajnam Chapi Mam Vidhi. Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata. Kshetra Kshetrajna or Jnanam Yattad Jnanam Matam Mama. So try to understand this knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So in this shloka, purport, Srila Prabhupada explains very beautifully the difference between Atma and Paramatma. So I will open this section here. Yeah. Yeah. So can you read from here, Shivani? This highlighted portion. You are muted here.
Yes. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king knows not only his palace but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all the bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies.
Very interesting example given here. Like all of us are staying in some home, right? And you have a home and you are the Kshetrajna or the owner of that home. But the government owns all the homes, right? Like we may know what is happening in our home and where is my home, but I may not know where another person is staying. Like, isn't it? For example, I am staying in this temple, and all of you are staying in your respective homes, but I don't know where is your home, right? Unless you tell me, unless you give me the location, I will not come to know where is the home. But the government knows where all of us are staying, isn't it? Because they have all the details. They can check your Aadhaar card number and they'll come to know, okay, your address is this. They'll straight away come to you, isn't it? So they know more than what individuals know, right? So similarly, the king owns a large patch of land. No? He owns an empire, and he knows which state, how many people are staying, what is the population, what they are doing, how much is the production, everything he knows. So in that way, you can here the comparison is given. The king is compared to Paramatma, and the individual citizens are compared to small atmas. So that is the difference. So that is the meaning of Kshetrajnam Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu. I am the knower of all the fields of activity. So that's a and that's how Prabhupada is explaining here. But there are some category of spiritualists who are called as Mayavadis. They say that Atma and Paramatma are one. There is no difference. That's what they say. Actually, this is not true. There is a vast difference between Atma and Paramatma, because Atma is tiny, its influence is limited, and Paramatma is great, his influence is unlimited. It's there everywhere. So that is the difference between Atma and Paramatma. So I'll further show one more this thing. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, so you can read from here. Yeah. Please read from here.
Yes, Prabhuji. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and the constitution of the super soul is known in terms of the Vedic literature as Jnana. That is the opinion of Krishna.
Yeah. So here constitution of body means Kshetra, constitution of Atma, and constitution of Paramatma, super soul. All three should be known. Then the knowledge is complete. So that's called as Jnana. Yeah, please continue.
To understand both the soul and the super soul as one yet distinct is knowledge.
See, they are one in quality. Atma and Paramatma are one in quality, but distinct in quantity. So that we have to understand. So elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada explains that Atma can be compared to a drop of the ocean water, and Paramatma is like the ocean water. Ocean water is huge, unlimited quantity of water, but Atma is very tiny. So that's the difference. Qualitatively, the saltiness of the drop of water and the saltiness of the the ocean water is almost same, right? When you taste both are same taste, but quantity wise, they are different. Similarly, Atma is very tiny, but qualitatively, he is one with Krishna. So we are Sachidananda, Krishna is also Sachidananda, but we are not as great as Krishna. Krishna can create whole universe, he can create planets and suns and moons, but we cannot do that. We can maybe create some tiny water ponds, maybe we can make a tall building, that's all. Hmm. So that's the difference. So there's a question here, wasn't all our Atmas once one with Paramatma? That is my doubt. A very good question. So this question will be answered soon in the shloka number. It comes in this chapter. So 32, verse number 32, this question will be answered. Hmm. So very nice that you are asking a relevant question to this chapter. So actually, Atma is Anadi, it has no beginning. Just like the sun always exists with the sun rays. As soon as you say sun, sun rays exist with it. It's not that the first sun came and then the light started coming. No, it's simultaneous. Similarly, as soon as you said Krishna is there, Krishna means he exists with his souls, his servants. So his abode, his servants, his avatars, everything exists simultaneously. So that's the example given here. So there is no beginning. It's not that once everything was one with Paramatma and then small portions were cut off from Paramatma and then we all came. It's not like that. Just like fire exists with the sparks, similarly Krishna always exists with the jivas. So that's the understanding. We'll discuss more when you come to the 32nd verse. Okay. So we will go ahead. Tat kshetram yaccha yadrakcha
Kshetram yacca yadrukcha
yadvikari yatascha yat
yadvikari yatascha yat
sachayo yat prabhavascha
sachayo yat prabhavascha
tat samasena meshruno.
tatsamasena me shrunu.
Please read this.
Now, please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted. What is what its changes are, when it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is and what his influences are.
Yeah. So Krishna wants to explain more details about the field of activity. So then Arjuna may ask the question, Krishna, where is it spoken? Where are the details of this knowledge spoken before? Then Krishna says in fifth verse, Rishibir Bahuda Geetam
ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतं
Chandobir Vividhai Prataka
छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक्
Brahma Sutra Padaischaiva
ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव
Hetumadbhir Vinishchitaihi.
हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चते.
Please read.
That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect.
Yeah, so this has been previously explained by rishis like Parashara. Parashara Muni has very nicely explained this in one of his writings. It is said that um, uh, it is said Vyasadev's father Parashara is also a great sage, and he writes in his books of Aham Tvam Cha Tathanye, you, we, I, and other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. And we are now fallen into the ways of three modes of material nature according to our different karmas. So this is explained by Parashar Muni long back. So Prabhupada writes these details in the purport. So it's also explained in Chandas. Chanda means the Vedas. So Vedic literatures like the Yajurveda also describe the nature of the living entity and the supreme personality of Godhead. Chandobir Vividhai Prathak. And Brahma Sutra Padeshchaiva. What is Brahma Sutra? Brahma Sutra is nothing but Vedanta Sutra. So in Vedanta Sutra also it has been ascertained. So Brahma Sutra means after writing all the Vedas, Vyasadeva wrote a summary of the entire Vedas. That's why it's called Vedanta. The conclusion of the Vedas is presented in sutra forms. That's Vedanta. So which has got 4 sections and subsections and many shlokas in the form of sutras, like Aham Brahmasmi, uh, Janmadi Asyataha, from Krishna came everything, I am Brahman, Tattvamasi, I am like the Brahman. So these are many sutras given there in the Vedanta Sutras. In that also, the nature of Prakriti and the Kshetrajna is explained, Krishna says. So Prabhupada especially quotes from Taittiriya Upanishad that how this difference between Kshetra and Kshetrang is also explained in Brahma Pucham Pratishtha. So, yeah, see here. Kshetra is a field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetrajna, individual soul and the supreme entity. As stated in Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahma Pucham Pratishtha, there is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya. Annamaya means where a person considers that food as the source of his existence. That's called Annamaya. Like generally animals and birds, they are in Annamaya Kosha. They just want to find out where is my food, where is my food. That's Annamaya. And beyond that, there is Pranamaya, where one realizes, where one comes to the state of subtle existence. So, so it is through the symptoms, life symptoms in the living forms. That's called Pranamaya. And Jnanamaya means his realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Means he comes to the stage of mind. He understands the mind at this stage. And then there is Brahman called Vijnanamaya, where he understands in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. Means here he comes to the stage of Atma. So that's called as Vijnanamaya. And then Anandamaya, where he realizes the Supreme Lord. So these are the 5 stages of Brahman realization. It's called as Brahma Pucha. So of these five, these three, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, they are concerning the Kshetra, the field of activity. And Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya, they are concerning the state of spirit, Atma and Paramatma. So these two has been described here. So this becomes very clear in this slide. Annamaya stage, food is supreme object. Pranamaya stage seeks to preserve his life. He wants to protect his body. So that's Pranamaya Kosha. Jnanamaya Kosha, he appreciates the subtle interactions of the mind, intelligence, emotions, aesthetics, etc. at ultimate, as the ultimate. And Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya, in Vijnanamaya stage, one understands he is the soul. And in Anandamaya stage, he realizes that I am distinct from the super soul and he surrenders to the super soul. So that's called as Anandamaya stage. Okay. So this has been described in many other Upanishads also. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives a brief summary, that's all. So now shloka number 6 and 7, Krishna explains further about this kshetra. He gives further definition. What is it made of? So kindly recite this verse. Mahabhutani ahankaro
महाभूतान्यहङ्कारो
buddhiravyaktamev cha
बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च
indriyani dashaikam cha
इन्द्रियाणि दशेकं च
panchachendriya gocharaha.
पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः.
Yeah. So here this first shloka further describes what is kshetra, what is the body made up of. So Mahabhuta. Mahabhuta means the five big elements, earth, water, fire and ether, which are the gross elements. Then there is Ahankara, which is a false ego. Buddhi is a materialistic intelligence. And Avyaktam refers to unmanifest nature, also called Pradhana. And Indriyani Dashaikamcha. Dasha Eka means 11. 10 plus 1, 11. So 5 Karmendriyas, 5 Gyanendriyas and the mind. So these three are, this constitute the 11. And Pancha Chendriya Gocharaha. So there are senses and there are sense objects, right? Earth, like there is eyes. For eyes, there is sight, which is a sense object. For ears, there is beautiful melodious sound. For tongue, it is a taste. For nose, it is a smell. For skin, it is a touch. So these are the uh, total material elements mentioned here. See, Prabhupada explains in the purport here. Yeah, so there are 5 great elements, Panchamahabhuta, and then there are 5 senses, so of acquiring knowledge. So 5 plus 5 is 10. Then 5 working senses, right? Which are the voice. Voice means mouth, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. And then there are 5 sense objects. 5 sense objects are there, which include smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. So total how much? 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 20. So then there is mana, buddhi, ahankara, the subtle elements. So which becomes 23. So they are mentioned here. You'll see false ego, intelligence, and unmanifested stage of 3 modes of material nature. So so total, yeah. So now the aggregate of these 24 elements is called field of activity. This is called kshetra. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 elements, then he can very well understand the field of activity. So till here was described the kshetra. Okay. So is it clear? Is it confusing? Were you able to understand the 24 elements? So it's very important to know what our body is made up of. So it's 24 elements. And the interaction between these 24 elements causes different feelings. So let's see what are those. इच्छा द्वेष सुखम दुःखम
इच्छा द्वेष सुखं दुःखं
संघातश्चेतना धृतिः
सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः
एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेन
एतत्क्षेत्रं समासेन
सविकारम् उदाहृतम्.
सविकारमुदाहृतम्.
Yeah, so you can read from here.
The five
Here.
great elements.
Yeah. Read fully. Yeah.
Yes. The five great elements false ego, intelligence, and unmanifested, the ten senses and the mind, the five senses, objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions, all these are considered in summary to the to be the field of activities and its interactions.
Yeah. So the field of activity was 24 elements, and their interactions are this icha, dvesha, sukha, dukkha. Mm. For example, in this photo, you'll see sometimes the person becomes angry, he's frustrated. Sometimes there is love or friendship between friends, and here he is happy, he is morose. So this interaction, the interaction of the jiva with the kshetra, with the metal body, is causing these kind of change feelings in the person. And also there are six changes which happen. The vikaras, so vikaram. What are the changes of the kshetra? First he is born, then he grows, the body grows, then he maintains. Then production of byproducts, he'll have children, and then he starts dwindling, he starts becoming old, then he finally dies. So in this way, this body keeps changing. So these are the changes of the body. So the definition of kshetra was further explained here. And the transformations of the kshetra were also explained in this. Okay. So that finishes the first section. The um, which was um, W, wise, wisdom was explained first, and now the items of knowledge. There are 20 items of knowledge which will be explained now. So we'll recite the shloka from here. Yeah, this is very important actually. These five shlokas, they very clearly explain what are the qualities by which we can attain the knowledge, by the qualities by which we can develop the understanding of Krishna. So these are the qualities, and it begins with humility. Okay, so we'll spend some time discussing these five verses because this is very important. Amanitvam adambitvam
अमानित्वम् अदम्भित्वम्
ahimsa kshantirarjavam
अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम्
acharyopasanam shaucham
आचार्योपासनं शौचम्
स्थैर्यम atma vinigraha.
स्थैर्यमात्मा विनिग्रह.
So amanitvam means humility. So one should be humble. If one has to learn knowledge, to acquire knowledge, one has to be humble. If somebody is proud, he cannot get knowledge. So humility is the first qualification. And Prabhupada defines humility in this way. He says, humility means not to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. Generally, we feel happy when somebody honors us, isn't it? Right? Somebody glorifies us, we become happy. But not to have the satisfaction of being honored by others, that's called as humility. Yeah, humility. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. That is humility. Amanitvam. Adambitvam. Adambitvam means one should not be proud and boast about himself. That's called adambitvam. So adambitvam is defined here in this paragraph only. Yeah, people are very anxious to be famous for their religion. And consequently, sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As far as spiritual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. See, he wants to become famous. That's called damba. Damba means to become famous. Generally, some people they join some spiritual organization and they want to become famous in that organization and call themselves as religious mentors or religious gurus. So that is not appropriate. One should have qualification to be a guru, then one can be a guru. One should not boast himself to be a guru unnecessarily. That's adambitvam. Ahimsa, the next definition. Yeah, can you read this definition? Non-violence means?
Yes, Prabhuji. Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually non-violence means not to put others into distress.
Yeah, so putting others into any kind of distress is violence. And the highest definition non-violence is given here. Yeah. Can you read this?
One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement, that is non-violence.
Yeah. See, people are suffering in this world. They're having many problems in this world. And the only solution to get out of these problems is knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So if we are not giving knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to others, then we are causing violence. Amazing definition Prabhupada is giving. Means what? If devotees claim themselves to be non-violent, then we should give Bhagavad Gita to others. We should distribute this knowledge to others. Then we are actually doing practicing non-violence. So preaching is real non-violence, not just practicing for one's sake. No, one should practice for one's sake, one's advancement, and as well give it to others, share it with others. So that is real non-violence. Very deep definitions of these qualities Prabhupada is giving here. And next is tolerance. Yeah, please read the first line.
Tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others.
Yeah, so read this also.
If one is engaged in the advancement of spiritual knowledge, there will be so many insults and much dishonor from others.
Yeah, so Prabhupada is writing, no, if you are practicing spirituality, there will be insults and dishonor from others. Okay, have any one of you experienced such a thing in your life? Once you started becoming a devotee, chanting Hare Krishna, or attending Gita classes, did you face some kind of criticism or did you face some kind of um, insult or something like that? No. Okay, very good. Your exception. Okay, some Shri is telling yes. Okay. Generally, it is seen that no, if somebody starts becoming very serious in spirituality, then there will be some envious people who will try to poke their nose and try to some or the other defame that personality. Right? It happens. Like it happened in the case of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was becoming a very great devotee, and people are insulting him, uh, and they beat him in 22 marketplaces just because he was a devotee of the Lord. And one rich man called Ramachandra Khan, he tried to defame Haridas Thakur by sending the prostitute in the dead of the night to him to distract him from his sadhana and disturb him. So all these things do happen sometimes. Okay, not insult, but somewhat criticism. Okay. Yes, experiencing these things. Yes. So this means that you are progressing in spirituality. Because when you start becoming serious in spirituality, materialistic people will start criticizing. Hmm. The example is given Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad was a boy, 5 year old, and he was just chanting Hare Krishna, but his father became so cruel. He wanted to kill his child because he was a devotee of the Lord. Right? So some devotees will surely experience this. And those who are in college or school, your friends may say, "Hey, what are you doing this chanting Hare Krishna at a young age? This is the time to enjoy. Let's go to movie. Let's go for party. Why are you doing all these things at a young age?" Like this, some people will say. So what one should do? One should tolerate. Titikshava. Tolerate and go ahead with your spiritual life. So that's what one should do. That's tolerance. Then simplicity. Yeah, please read the definition of simplicity.
Simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy.
Amazing. Huh? Simplicity means heart should be simple, that he can tell the truth, even the deep secrets he can tell to enemy also. So that's called as simplicity. Like Yudhishthira Maharaj approached Bhishma and said, Bhishma, you're so powerful. Can you please tell how can we kill you? And Bhishma said, oh, yeah, if some lady comes in front of me, then I cannot fight with her. So that is my weakness. So in your army, there is Shikhandi, who in previous life was Amba. So you put her there. So then I'll not be able to shoot arrows at Arjuna. Then you can defeat me. So Bhishma was so simple. He told the truth. even to his opponents. So that is simplicity. So then one should accept a spiritual master. One should accept a guru. Because without the instructions of bona fide spiritual master, one cannot progress in spiritual science. So this is very important. The first step in spiritual life is to accept a guru. One has to approach a bona fide guru. Without that, it's impossible to make advancement. Some people think that now I will read the books and I'll make advancement. Yeah, you may make some tiny little advancement, but you need a guide who can hold your finger and take you forward in spiritual life. Such a guide is required. So we should all look for such a guide and accept him and then take instructions. So that is very important. But nowadays in the school and college, the culture has become such that no people go to internet, hear YouTube lectures, online lectures, and they read some books, and then they read some study guides, and then they crack the exam. So there is no need of teacher in one sense, physical need of teacher. But actually in spiritual life, it is not like that. So one has to have a person, spiritual guide who can hold him and take him ahead. Because there will be so many challenges which may come on the path, and we may not be able to handle those challenges on our own. So at every step, we need the guidance of a guru. So that's what Prabhupada says here. So when the if Guru bestows any blessings upon his disciple, that will make the disciple immediately advance without disciples following the regulative principles. Or the regulative principles will be easier for one who has served the spiritual master without reservation. Means following the four regulative principles, chanting Hare Krishna will become easy by the blessing of Guru. Okay. Yeah. Next one, cleanliness. Please read.
Cleanliness is essential for making advancement in spiritual life. There are two kinds of cleanliness, external and internal. External cleanliness means taking a bath, but for internal cleanliness, one has to think of Krishna always and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This process cleans the accumulated dust of past karma from the mind.
Yeah, correct. So externally, we maintain cleanliness by keeping our clothes clean, body clean, or surroundings clean. That is external. And internal, we have to keep our heart clean, free from all the negative thoughts by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. So this is cleanliness. Okay, so we have discussed these points. Samanitam, Madambitam, Ahimsa, Kshantirarjam, Acharya Upasanam, Saucham, Sthairiam, Atma Vinigra. So Sthairiam is remaining. So we'll go to Sthairiam. Yeah, steadiness. Please read this.
Steadiness means that one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. Without such determination, one cannot make tangible progress.
Yeah, so one should have great determination. Then self control.
And self control means that one should not accept anything which is detrimental to the path of spiritual progress.
Yeah, so what is detrimental? Like meat eating is detrimental, so we don't do that. Drinking alcohol is detrimental, we don't do that. Even going to theaters, watching movies, that is not very conducive because it disturbs the mind, so we avoid it. So even drinking Pepsi Cola. So whatever, and even people who are atheistic, it is not favorable. So we don't associate with them. So in this way, self-control means to accept things which are to not to accept things which are detrimental. So that's called as self-control. So senses crave for sense gratification, but we should not give them sense gratification. That's what Prabhupada is studying. Okay. So in this way, Prabhupada explains a lot of points here. We just discussed a few. But I will go back to the verse and show you more. Yeah. So now I will not read the purports, but I'll explain from here only. Indriyarteshu vairagyam.
Indriyartheshu vairagyam.
It means what? One should be detached from sense gratification. Indriya should not be in touch with sense objects. One should detach oneself. Anahankara evacha.
Anahankara eva cha.
Ahankara means pride. Anahankara means pridelessness. One should be humble. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi
जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि
dukkha doshanu darshanam.
दुःख दोषानुदर्शनम्.
So this is one quality actually, whole 2 lines. To see that Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi are the real problems. So this verse we discuss quite often to say that how miserable this material world is, because it is filled with Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Anybody who is born will die. So Janma, Mrityu. And in between there is Jara and Vyadhi, old age and disease. So this, to see this, Anudarshanam means to see that these are all the real problems. So that is one of the quality. Now next one. Asaktiranabhisvangaha
असक्तिरनभिस्वङ्गः
putradara grahadishu.
पुत्रदारगृहादिषु.
This is another quality. One should not be attached to children, putra. Dara means wife, and griha. Griha means home. Adishu, etc. Is car and vehicles and other things. One should be detached from that. So now this may appear to be very difficult. How can one be detached from all these things, because we are staying with them? So one should be detached in the sense that one can be affectionate. One can show, express one's affection to all these wife, children, family, and other things. But one should be in a spirit of detachment, knowing that these are all temporary. At one time or the other in the future, I will be separated from them. So in that way, one should be staying with all these people in a detached spirit. So that's what it says. And in case uh, this family is not favorable, then Srila Prabhupada says, then one has to, then one may give up that family also, if it's not very favorable for Krishna consciousness, right? So that is this quality. Nityam cha samachittatvam.
नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम्.
Always one should be equipoised, samachitta. Ishtanishtopapatishu.
इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु.
So one should be detached, one should be equipoised when he gets ishta and anishta, favorable and unfavorable things. Generally, when we get favorable things, we become very excited. When we get unfavorable things, we become morose. So in both situations, one should be equipoised. Mayi chananya yogena
मयि चानन्ययोगेन
bhakti ravyabhicharini.
भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी.
So this is the most important quality. One should have bhakti for Krishna. If we have bhakti, automatically all other 19 qualities will automatically come. Vivikta desha sevitvam.
विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम्.
One should stay in a secluded place. Vivikta desha means a secluded place he should stay. Aratirjana samsadi.
अरतिर्जनसंसदि.
And one should be detached from materialistic people. Jana samsadi. Rati means attachment. Arati means detached. So one should be detached from materialistic personalities. Adhyatma jnana nityatvam.
अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम्.
One should always be fixed in Adhyatma Jnana, in thinking that I am soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam.
तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम्.
So one should always try to understand the philosophical truth. Tattva Jnana. Etad Jnanam iti proktam ajnanam yad atonyatha. All these things, O Arjuna, is Jnana. And anything else is Ajnana. So in the sense that all these qualities, if we develop, we can easily understand Krishna. So these qualities are the process of acquiring knowledge. Okay, so that's what is explained here. So we'll go ahead to the next section from verse number 13. So till now, what has been explained is, I'll briefly summarize. So Jnana, cultivating the qualities described in 8 to 12, 5 verses, that's Jnana. And now from verse number 13, Krishna will explain Jnaya, which is soul and super soul. Okay, first Jnaya is soul and second Jnaya is super soul. So that will be explained in the shlokas 13th shloka explains about soul. 14th shloka, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, they explain about super soul. Okay. So let's go to that verse. Yeah. So kindly recite this. Gneyam yattat pravakshyami
ज्ञेयं यत् यत् प्रवेक्ष्यामि
यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते
यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते
अनादिमत् परं ब्रह्म
अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म
न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते.
न सत्तान्नासदुच्यते.
So here it is told Gneyam, the from Jnana is the process of knowledge and Gneya is the object of knowledge. So Gneya, first Gneya is Atma. Anadi Mat Param Brahma. So Brahma here refers to Atma. Atma is also called Brahman and Krishna is Parabrahman. So this Brahman understand that it is Anadi, it is beginningless. Right? It has no beginning. And one of you had asked the question, so did souls exist as in Paramatma as one? No, they are beginningless. So it's the knowledge starts from here, 13th verse and at the end also. This will be further explained. So Anadi, Matparam, soul is always subordinate to Krishna. That's called Matparam. Sat, Nasat, and it is beyond cause and effect. So what is the cause? The material world is a effect actually. The material transformations which you see in this world is a effect and it's caused by Prakriti. So the soul is beyond this cause and effect. So that's what Krishna is explaining here. So the soul is always transcendental to matter. So that is the first Jnana. And you will see next one here in this shloka 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, the qualities of super soul are being explained. So the 14th shloka says that Paramatma is all pervading. He is there everywhere, ever existing. Sarvatapani padam tat sarvatokshi shiromukham sarvata shrutimal loke sarvamavritya tishtati. His hands and legs and eyes are everywhere. Right? I have my eyes only in my body, that too in my head, not in the back. And I can see all of you, but I cannot see behind what is happening, isn't it? So my eyes are not everywhere, but Lord's eyes are everywhere. Sarvatokshi, Shiromukham, Sarvata Shrutimaloke. He can hear anything which people are speaking anywhere. So that's the meaning of the Lord. All pervading. And is transcendental. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam, Asaktam Sarvabhutchaiva, Nirgunam, Guna Bhoktarcha. That is, he is transcendental. He is beyond the modes of material nature. See, there are two words used here, Sarvendriya Gunabhasam. So let me go to the verse. See, Sarvendriya Gunabhasam. He has all the senses. Means he has spiritual senses. And Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. He has no material. He has all spiritual senses, but no material senses. So it is said that Lord has no eyes, but still he can see. Lord has no legs, but still he can walk. Means what? He has no material legs and material eyes, but he has transcendental eyes and legs. So in Brahma Samhita, written by Brahmaji, there is a shloka which says, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Damaham Bhajami. The Lord has senses and they are all transcendental. His eyes can smell. He can walk with his hands. So he can do anything with his senses. His transcendental personality. So that's the meaning of this. Okay. And the 16th verse says that he is all reconciling. Antar Bahishya Bhutanam Acharam Charam Evacha. Means what? He is inside the heart, he is outside the heart also. He can move and he doesn't move also. Right? And he is very sukshma, he is very fine. And he is also, because he is very fine, he is Avigneyam, we cannot see the Lord. Just like we cannot see the air, we cannot see because it is sukshma. We can feel the air, but we cannot see the air. So, but here, the Lord is sukshmavat. That's why he is avigneyam. He cannot be known. Durastam chantiketayat. He is very far and yet very near. How he is far? Because he is very difficult to know. So he is very far. Yet he is very near because he can be known by only bhakti. So that's the meaning of the 16th verse. Antarbahishcha bhutanam acharam charamevacha. Now 17th verse, it says undivided. Lord is undivided. He is the maintainer and destroyer. Okay. So I will show this verse to you, all of you. Yeah. Can you recite this verse here?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu
Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu
vibhaktam iva cha sthitham
vibhaktamiv च स्थितम्
bhutabhartra cha tadneyam
भूतभर्तृच्च तज्ज्ञेयम्
grashishnu prabha vishnu cha.
ग्रसिष्णु प्रभविष्णु च.
Yeah. So please recite this.
Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all.
Yeah. See, some people think that super soul is many. In my heart there is super soul, and in your heart there is super soul. In your friend's heart there is super soul. Like this, people think that their super souls are many, but he says no. Super soul is one Atma, one Paramatma. Right? Avibhaktam, he is undivided. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. But he appears to be divided. It's very interesting. Let me explain this. Like for example, if you see the sun is one. But if you put some 100 pots with water in that, and you will see the reflection of the sun in all the 100 pots, isn't it? He appears to be divided in the pots. In the same way, one super soul, he appears to be in my heart, and he appears to be in each and every one of your heart. So that's the meaning. Another example, Prabhupada says in the purport, he says that I'll open and read it for you. Yeah. The example of sun is given. The sun at the meridian is situated in its place. Like you see the sun on the top of your head in the midday. But if one goes for 5,000 miles in all directions and asks, where is sun? Everyone will say that that it is shining on his head. Right? And I will also say sun is on my head. Some with thousands of kilometers away, that person also say, sun is above my head. So everybody is seeing the sun as personal to them. It is my sun. So similarly, although Paramatma is one, everybody feels as if he is my Paramatma. He is there in my heart only. No, but he is there in everybody's heart simultaneously. But he is one personality. He is not divided personality. And he is the creator, maintainer, and the destroyer. And Prabhu Vishnu is the creator of all these things. So this was explained. Is my voice clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so there is a sign here that network is not proper. Anyways, we'll continue. So now in 17th verse, Krishna told about Paramatma. Finally, in 13.18, Krishna clearly reveals the identity of the one he has been describing. The Gneyam is the super soul who is Hridi Sarvasya within the heart of all living entities. So let's read this. Dyo Jyotishamapi Tajjoti
ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिष्
Tamasa Paramuchyate
तमसः परमुच्यते.
Jnanam Gneyam Jnanagamyam
ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यं
Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam.
विधि सर्वस्य विश्चितम्.
So Gneyam is a super soul who is situated in everybody's heart. Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam. So he is Jnanam, he is Gneyam, and he is Jnanagamyam. Right? So that's the meaning. So jnana means what? He is knowledge. Gniya means he is the object of knowledge. And jnana gamya means he can be reached by knowledge. Means what? Those 5 shlokas from 8 to 12, starting from humility. If one develops those qualities, then he can eventually reach Paramatma. So that's the meaning. So let's read more qualities about Paramatma now. So from 20 to 26 verse, so the nature of Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, now Paramatma section ends here. So the Kshetra, the body, and Kshetrajna, Atma and Paramatma. It was very clearly explained till now. And Jnana and Gniyam is also explained till now. So two questions are remaining, Purusha and Prakriti. So Krishna will explain a little bit about Purusha and Prakriti now. So let's see what is that. So Prakriti is nature and Purusha is the enjoyer. Right? So all good and bad events, transformations occur in matter. That's called Prakriti. Purusha's identification with Prakriti leads to happiness and distress. So that is explained in 21st verse. And Purusha's desire to enjoy uh, makes him entangled in Prakriti. So that is the 22nd verse. So there is a summary. So you'll see here, this person is trying to enjoy this lady and he will suffer eventually. And then by trying to enjoy the material world, person suffers a lot. He gets more and more entangled like this person coiled by a snake. So that is the nature of this material world. The desire to enjoy makes us bound to the modes of material nature in this world. Okay. So in the 20th verse, yeah, changes that the body undergoes or the kshetra undergoes is explained here. It is also prakriti only in one sense. So Prakritim purusham chaiva vidhi anadi ubhavi vikaramsta gunams chaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So the material energy is eternal. So I'll try to explain this to you. Here it is said that, oh, voice is breaking. Let me change my network.
That time it was breaking, Prabhuji. Now it's fine.
No, it's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
now I shifted to a better network. It should come now. So, Atma is eternal. That is easy to understand. How matter is eternal? That also we should try to understand. See, the body which we are possessing, after 50, 60 years, 70 years, it may die. And the body goes. Right? The manifestation of the matter is destroyed, but the matter itself is not destroyed. Like you might have heard the Einstein's principle of law of conservation of energy, right? Matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but it can be like energy cannot be created or destroyed, but energy can be transformed from one form to another. Like you can convert electrical energy into motion, fan energy, right? I can convert voice energy into electrical energy through the mic, and which you can hear in your end. So in this way, energy can be transformed, but it cannot be destroyed. Similarly, matter can be transformed, but it cannot be destroyed. Like for example, so there is a tree standing in a forest. So one carpenter goes and cuts the tree. Okay, and tree was made from earth only, right? Earth grew into a tree, and carpenter cuts it. He gets the tree, and then he makes a nice table out of it. And the table, it stays for maybe 50 years, and after 50 years, it has become weak, and the owner of that, he will dispose it in the junk, and somebody else will pick it up and thinks, oh, it's a nice wood for fuel. So he puts it in the fuel, and whole wood burns. Some part of it transforms into smoke, and some part becomes ashes, and the ashes are again thrown into the earth, and it becomes part of the earth. So in that ashes where it was thrown, somebody puts a mango seed, and then that ashes becomes into mango seed, mango tree. So in this way, the first tree became a wooden table, then it became ashes, and then again it becomes something else. In this way, the matter form of matter is changing, but the matter itself is eternal. Like the soul is eternal, matter is also eternal. But the transformations are caused in the matter by the three modes, Sattuguna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. So that Prakriti, the material energy, causes the matter to change. So that's what is explained here. So the origin of the body is Prakriti, because material nature only gives our body made up of Panchamahabhutas. And why we get this body is because of the desire of the soul, because Atma has desired. Yeah. So let's read this 21st shloka. Karyakarana kartrutve
कार्यकरणकर्तृत्वे
hetu prakritiruchyate
हेतुप्रकृतिरुच्यते
purusha sukha dukkhanam
पुरुषसुखदुःखानां
bhoktrutve heturuchyate.
भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते.
So karya, the activity, and karana, the cause, is prakriti. So the cause of the activities of the material nature is prakriti. But purusha sukha dukkhanam, the causes for dukkha and sukha of the atma is the soul's desire to enjoy, bhoktrutve. Like if I desire to enjoy something, then I become the cause of the happiness or the distress coming out of it. Okay. So if, for example, somebody has diabetes, but he wants to eat nice gulab jamuns. In our temple, we had made big gulab jamuns today because we had Prabhat festival. But if somebody has diabetes and he says, "Oh, I want to eat gulab jamun," he desired to eat, then he ate it, then after that he has to go to the doctor because the sugar levels rise. Now, who became the cause of that suffering? His desire. So the desire leads to happiness or distress. But the material body is given by Prakriti. Okay, so that's a little technical section, this section. So you can try to understand as best as you can. And 22nd verse is like this. Purusha prakritisto hi
पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि
bhungte prakritijan gunan
भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतिजान् गुणा
karanam guna sangasya
कारणं गुणसङ्गस्य
sadasadyoni janmasu.
सदसद्यो निजन्मसु.
Purusha, the Atma, Purusha means a conditioned soul who thinks that I am this body. So the Purusha in this Kshetrajna was a liberated soul. Purusha is a conditioned soul who thinks that I am this body. So Purusha in this body, Purusha Prakriti stohi. Purusha while staying in this body, bhungte. He wants to enjoy this Prakriti made of three modes. Prakriti Jan Gunan. And Karanam Guna Sangasya. Because he wants to enjoy matter, he comes in contact with the Sattuguna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. And then he gets Sat and Asad. Sat means higher bodies, and Asad means lower bodies. Sad, Asad, Yoni. Yoni means species of life. Janmasu. Like here you see in this photograph here. Um, let's start from below. Now, this person is wanting to have some illicit affair. So he's getting the body of a dog. Because dogs have no discrimination. They have affairs with anybody. And this person is wanting to eat like a pig. So he's become pig. Because he's associating with that kind of activities and gunas, he's getting that kind of bodies. And here you will see this person is serving a saintly man. He is elevated to a higher place. And here somebody is worshipping Lord here. He is worshipping Krishna here. What is not very clear, but it is worshipping Krishna. He goes to spiritual world, playing with Krishna and Balaram. So in this way, by our activities and the modes we associate with, we elevate to the higher or lower destinations. So in the next chapter, we'll discuss more about three modes, Sattuguna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. So a lot of details will be explained there. Okay. So this we already, 22nd verse we discussed. Now 23rd verse tells about Paramatma's duties. What are the duties of Paramatma? And 24th verse tells about, after knowing Paramatma, it causes liberation. And 25th verse and 26th verse tell that one can achieve this understanding through various types of yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, and dhyana yoga, of which bhakti is the easiest and the best. So let's see 23rd verse. Upadrushtanumanta cha
उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च
Bharta Bhokta Maheshwarah
भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः
Paramatmiti Chapyukto
परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो
Dehesmin Purusha Paraha.
देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः.
See, Lord is Upadrashta. He is the observer. He is always seeing what person is doing. Like, if you remember, I told the story of Kanakadas. Kanakadas, once Guru came and called everybody and said, "No, you take these bananas and eat in a place where nobody is seeing you." Everybody, all the disciples went and came back. Kanakadas also came back. And everybody had eaten the banana. Somebody said, I went into the deep forest. Nobody was seeing me. I ate it. Somebody said, I went into the kitchen, put a kambul, and inside that I ate it. Somebody said, I went into the water in the lake. There I said, no, not a fish was there. I ate it there. And finally they asked Kanakadas, what about you? Kanakadas said, sorry, I could not eat the banana. I brought it back. Why? And he said, wherever I went, I could see the Lord. Huh? So because Lord is, wherever I went, I could see the Lord observing me. That's why I never could eat this banana. So that's why Lord is called Upadrashta. He's also called Animesha. Animesha means he never blinks his eye. He's always open like this. He is seeing, right? Even if uh, it may happen that somebody blinks the eye and that he may do something wrong. No, Lord is always watching, right? And is more keen to watch the good things we are doing than the bad things. So that Upadrashta. Anumanta. Anumanta means Anumati dete hain. One who sanctions our desires. Like somebody gets a desire, no, I want to be an engineer. Oh, you want to be an engineer? Okay. We'll sanction you're going to this college. And sometimes he may not sanction because if you don't deserve, you don't have that karma, he'll not sanction us. So Bharta Bhokta, he is the maintainer, Bharta. He is the Bhokta, he is the enjoyer of all our sacrifices. He is Maheshwara, supreme controller. His name is Paramatma. Paramatma iti, chapi ukto, dehesmin purushapara. And he is superior to, he is a superior Purusha in our body. So that's the meaning. So there is this yogi is doing tapasya, but Lord is observing, sitting in his heart, what all things are happening in his mind and body. So he is the Paramatma. And what is the result of understanding Paramatma? He becomes liberated. One who knows Purusha, Prakriti, and Gunas attains liberation. So then, what are the method to realize Paramatma? So Krishna says here, Dhyani Atmani Pashyanti. Some people do by attain Paramatma by Dhyana. Kechidatmanam Atmana Anya Sankhya Yogena. Some people do it by Sankhya Yoga. And Karma Yogena. Some people attain the Lord by performing activities through their body, regular activities. So then Krishna may say, Hare, but Arjuna may ask, but if somebody is not qualified to perform dhyana, yoga, jnana yoga, and karma yoga, what about them? Then Lord says, bhakti is the best. Anyatvam evam ajanantah. If somebody is not knowing path of karma yoga, jnana yoga, and dhyana yoga, then he can do bhakti yoga, which begins with shrutva anyebhi upasate, by hearing. Like all of us are hearing Krishna Katha. So if somebody doesn't know how to do karma, jnana, and yoga, we can practice bhakti. Tepi cha atitaranti eva. They also will cross and they will become transcendental. Mrityum samshruti parayana. They will cross over death because they are hearing about Krishna. So Prabhupada gives very interesting purport here. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Right? So none of the schools, colleges are teaching about the spiritual activities. So all the more in Kali Yuga, it is more important that we hear about Krishna, and especially Prabhupada says, Lord Chaitanya has recommended the if Lord Chaitanya said that if he hears transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So one should hear this mantra, and then one can become quickly transcendental. It is stated, therefore, that all the men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. Okay, so this is the main point for all of us. So please chant Hare Krishna. So now all the 6 questions have been answered in the from which are asked in 13.1. So Purusha, Prakriti, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnana and Jnayam all are answered. So in the rest of the chapter, he will integrate and expand on all the topics and explain the vision of one who can understand them from proper perspective. Okay, so the vision of knowledge, Jnana Chakshu, is described in the last 7 verses. So here it is said, a realized person can distinguish matter, spirit and matter in all circumstances. Like this devotee, like a sannyasi, he is seeing an elephant, a brahmana, a cow, a dog, a shudra, chandala, right? So, but he is also seeing Atma inside, like this small star which is there, that's Atma. Sorry. And allowing that there is Paramatma also. So he is able to see soul and super soul simultaneously in the body. He sees indestructible super soul always accompanying the indestructible living entities. Thus, seeing super soul everywhere, he acts in proper knowledge and never degrades himself by pursuing selfish desires of the mind. Like if somebody is seeing super soul everywhere, then he is always conscious of God and he will never degrade himself by doing bad activities. Somebody, when he forgets the Paramatma, then he does wrong activities, right? If somebody is always remembering the Lord, there is no chance of committing any mistake. So that's why the super soul vision helps a person to elevate himself. Yeah, so we'll read this 29th verse. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र
samavasthitam ishwaram
समवस्थितमीश्वरं
na hinasti atmanatmanam
न हिनस्ति आत्मनात्मानं
tato yati param gatim.
ततो याति परां गतिम्.
Right. So samam pashyan hi sarvatra. One who sees everywhere Atma and Paramatma, samavasthitam ishwaram na hinasti, he will not degrade. Because he is always seeing the Lord, Atmana Atmanam. Okay, he is always seeing the Lord through his mind. Tato yati param gatim. He will reach the topmost destination. So this is Paramatma vision. Okay, so then we come to the last section. Actually, I had showed the acronym WISE, but it can be split more further. His Grace Radhesham Prabhu in this PPT has split into 6. Wisest he has made. So the last section is transcendental. So transcendental Jnana Chakshu means he sees that ultimately neither he nor others are acting. Only the body acts in this world, but the living entity is distinct from the field of activity and never mixing with the body. So it's something very important to understand. So here you will see this photograph um, where 3 ladies are standing here, and these 3 ladies are having some strings in it. So can somebody tell me who are these 3 ladies? Whom do they represent?
Prabhuji, they are the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Correct. You are right, Rishi. So there are the 3 modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So this yellow lady, she is goodness, golden color. So this red one is passion, and purple one is ignorance. And you will see this one person, these 2 people are having hockey sticks in their hand, and they're fighting with each other. Now how they are fighting, because the modes are acting on them, and they are getting angry, they're getting envious, and because of that they are acting. So the soul is just desiring. His soul feels, okay, I should harm him, but he cannot harm because the soul cannot beat the body. So what the mental Prakriti does, Prakriti starts acting, and Prakriti will start producing some reactions in the body by which the hand moves and the eyes become angry and becomes red hot, and then he starts punching. So the soul only desires something, but all the action is done by Prakriti. So that's what Krishna is telling here. He sees that ultimately neither he nor others are acting. Only the body acts in this world. Okay. So how the body acts? Body acts through the 3 gunas, the 3 modes of material nature. So here it is said, Prakritevacha karmani kriyamanani sarvasha. So all the activities are done by Prakriti only. Yaha pashyati tatatmanam akartaram sa pashyati. So such a person is actually seer, He sees that the soul is never doing anything, he's only desiring, and Prakriti is doing all the actions. So in the 31st shloka, uh, the devotee sees souls everywhere, expanded everywhere. And 32nd verse, the soul is the non-doer and is not entangled. Na karoti, na lipyate. It is like no oil and water. Can you mix oil and water? When you put oil into water, they don't mix. They still remain separate. Similarly, although the soul is, it appears as if it is stuck in the body. It's mixed with the body, but it's not. It is staying aloof from the body. No matter how much ever, whatever kind of bodies the body soul gets, he is not mixed with the body. He stays aloof. Na karoti na lipyate. Yeah. The example is given here. Soul doesn't mix with matter. Yatha sarvagatam saukshmad. Akasham nopalipyate. Like the air, it mixes with many things, right? It sometimes is in water also. It mixes with water. It mixes with stool. It mixes with food, right? And sometimes we breathe. No, when you're breathing, air goes inside. It appears as if the air is mixing with the body, but no, it stays aloof from the body. So similar, like the air, the Atma also remains aloof from the body. So this is what is explained here in 33rd verse. And 34th verse, Yatha prakashayati ekah kritsnam lokam imam ravi. Like sun pervades everywhere. Like the sun is in one place, but the light is everywhere. Kshetram kshetri tata kritsnam prakashayati bharata. The soul staying in one place in the heart, it pervades the entire body. It illuminates the body through consciousness. Like if some ant is crawling on my back, I can immediately come to know. That is the nature of the soul, because its consciousness is pervaded everywhere. So in the last sloka of this chapter, so let's recite this. Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam
Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam
antaram jnana chakshusha
antaram jnana chakshusha
bhuta prakriti moksham cha
bhuta prakriti moksham cha
ye viduryanti te param.
ye viduryanti te param.
Please read this translation.
Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal.
Yes. So if you know the 6 points given in this chapter, right? Purusha, Prakriti, Jnana, Jneya, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, one will get liberated from this material world and go to the spiritual world. So that benediction, Falashruti means the benefit of hearing this chapter is explained here. The benefit is you will go back home, back to Godhead. So the next chapter is the three modes of material nature. It's very interesting and something very practical. You can see Bhagavad Gita in action. When you understand this chapter, when you are in home, you are walking in the streets, you're going to office, you can see Bhagavad Gita shlokas on the streets. When you understand these three modes of material nature, it's very practical. So we'll try to discuss this in the next chapter, next session. Okay, so basically today we discussed the chapter 13, nature, enjoyer, and the consciousness. Nature is Prakriti, enjoyer is Purusha, and the consciousness is Atma. So, and Paramatma. So these things we discussed today. So if anybody has any questions regarding this, you can kindly ask now. Yes. So this last few chapters, especially 13, 14, 15, these three chapters, they are highly philosophical and technical, and they use the language of Upanishads. Generally, Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata, and the meter is very simple, very easy to understand. But these three chapters, 13, 14, and 15, the language of Upanishads is being used. A very complex language, sometimes very difficult to understand. Sattanna saduchate, like that they will say. So we have to have the tika of the acharyas and little presence of mind to understand those shlokas very nicely. So these three chapters will be little technical. And then 16, 17, 18, again, it's more easy to understand and very practical also. Okay. So any questions anybody has regarding today's chapter? No questions. I hope all of you understood the chapter. How many of you understood at least some points of this chapter today? Please raise your hands. Okay. Okay. Fine. Harsha Mataji, Dheeraj, Akanksha, Pratik. Okay. Omkar, Deepali, Anuradha, Arshab. Okay. So all of you are understanding some points. Wait. Okay. I'm happy that you are able to understand. Especially these are very little tricky chapters. But you can try to read it again and then also answer the quiz which I'll be sending you in a day or two. That will help you to revise these concepts nicely. Okay. Okay, Mohit is asking, can you sum up the 6 things, I mean 6 questions? Okay, I will sum up here. Right, I'll go to the slide only. That will become more easy. Yeah, so the 6 questions. Prakriti, question 1. Purusha is second. Kshetra is third. Kshetrajna, Jnanam and Niyam. These 6 things were asked. What is Prakriti? It's a material nature. So the material nature is nothing but it is made up of all the 24 elements. So that is material nature. And these 24 elements are being changed by the 3 modes of material nature. The gunas, 3 gunas. So that is Prakriti. And Purusha is the enjoyer of matter, the conditioned soul, one who doesn't know that I am the soul. He's trying to enjoy this body. So he's called as Purusha. Kshetra is a field in which one can act within the material world. Like this body which I have now, that's my Kshetra. Right? And I have influence on some people. So that's my field of activity, Kshetra. And who is Kshetrajna? One who knows that I am separate from this body. I am Atma. He is called as Kshetrajna. And what is Jnana? Jnana is the knowledge and the process of acquiring knowledge, especially the 20 qualities which are given in the shloka 8 to 12. So Jnanam. And what is to be known? Atma and Paramatma. That is the object of knowledge. So first we should understand what is Atma, nature of the Atma, and then the nature of Paramatma. So these are the 6 things in summary. Is it okay, Mohit? Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. And also I request all of you kindly attempt all the quizzes which were, if you have skipped some quizzes, you can also go back and attempt those in the Google form. So that will help you. So, and we are coming to the end. Only 5 more chapters are remaining. By Gita Jayanti, by 25th December, we'll be done with this course. And at the end, we'll be issuing certificates to those who have attempted all the quizzes. We'll be issuing certificates. So we can kindly attempt the questions. So there's a question here. Puri, as I said, once we excel in spiritualism, people will start criticizing. But when this happens, I always get confused and my mind again becomes unstable. How to keep mind stable in such situation? How to deal with them? So we can understand that these kinds of difficulties are coming for my purification. So first thing is they'll make me more stronger in my determination. Like Pandavas, although they were devotees of the Lord, they had so many challenges. Kauravas troubled them so much. We'll be discussing in Mahabharata series all these things, about how much troubles they had to face, all the being devotees of the Lord. But they didn't complain. They tolerated all the difficulties and used that difficulties for advancing in spiritual life. So this insults and honor will help us to come above the bodily platform. Sometimes we think we are very great. But somebody insults us, then we feel, oh, I'm very insignificant. So, and sometimes we think I'm very healthy. And suddenly some disease comes. Then you understand, oh, this world is dukkhalayam, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi. So many troubles are there in this world. So like this, these troubles in our life will help us to advance in spiritual life. So whenever troubles come, we should fold our palms and say, thank you, Krishna. So you're giving me another chance to advance in spirituality. So give me strength to face this difficulty and advance further. Okay. So like that, we have to deal with this situation. Brahmaji prays like this. Hridvag vapubir vidate namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadayavag. If somebody in difficulties can fold his palms and say, thank you, Krishna, such a person is eligible for liberation. One should not complain, but one should tolerate, and one should try to make advancement in that situation. But if the situation is too severe, then one can consult other senior devotees, mentors who can help us to deal with that situation in such a way that we can advance further in spiritual life. Of course, the mind gets disturbed. So that's why Krishna says, tolerate. This is temporary. Like somebody may insult us now, but then tomorrow somebody may glorify us. Then we should not become excited also too much. But that is also temporary. So the glorification and criticism, both are temporary. So that's why Krishna says, tolerate. Tam stidikshasya bharata. Like I said in second chapter, 14th verse. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agama payano nitya tam titikshasya bharata. Just like winter and summer season are temporary. A winter season, people, it's very cold, so people feel like sleeping a long time. They don't like to get up, isn't it? But still, one should get up. So some people cannot tolerate cold, but that is temporary. It will go, and summer will come. Some people cannot tolerate summer. It will also go. Then winter will come. So just keep tolerating these things and try to focus on chanting and reading Bhagavad Gita and understanding Bhagavad Gita, and we'll make advancement. So there is a question come here. Can you share these presentations? Yes, I'll share with you. It's already there. I will share you the link soon. I had put everything in one place. In that, I have not put these PPTs. I'll put these also, so you can refer to them in that Google Drive. Okay, I'll put it in the Telegram. Okay. Yes. Fine. So any other questions? Okay. So if there are no questions, then we'll end here, and we'll meet again next Sunday, same time, and to discuss about the 14th chapter, the 3 modes of material nature. Okay. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Oh, Gopashtami. Happy Gopashtami to you also. Gopashtami is the day when Krishna started herding cows. Right. So Krishna, when he became about 6 years old, he was given the charge of herding the cows. So before that, he was herding calves. He was herding calves. Now he became Gopala. He was herding cows. So that's the day today. Okay. So thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.